So it was sometime during the fall of 2008 that one of my closest friends left the church, and it had quite the impact on me. Now, I had friends in the past that had left the church, decided to leave the church, the organization, and it had its impact on me, but there was no one that had the impact that Jackie had on me. Now, Jackie and I had a really close relationship. She had invited me to church. She was praying with me when I spoke in tongues the first time. She was someone that I always respected and went to when I had spiritual needs and advice. She taught me Bible study when I first started going. She was actively involved in ministry. She was someone I really looked up to. So I started to feel very surprised when she started making certain comments. Kind of angry comments, cynical comments, sarcastic comments. She started voicing her disdain for some of the things that went on higher up. She started, sneering at some of the rules and standards and some of the ideas. And this was really hard on me to hear from her. I was used to hearing it from other people, but her of all people. Finally, she came to me and she goes, Stephanie, I'm not coming back. And I wondered, are you not coming back to the specific church I'm going to? And she goes, no, I'm not coming back to that denomination at all. In fact, I don't know if I'm going to go back to church. I don't know what I'm going to do. This really hit me very hard. And I tried to play it off like it didn't bother me, her leaving. It really bothered me. I was really angry and upset at her. I felt like, how could she turn her back on the truth? How could she turn her back on God? How could you experience God and then just turn and go away? That was how I was feeling. I didn't know if she was going to come back or not. I didn't know whether I should keep my hopes up, whether I should not, whether I should just let it go. Should I cut her off? Should I not? These are questions that I didn't have answers to. And that had an impact on me. For the first time since realizing that I couldn't know what God wanted from me, I wanted that feeling back. I wanted that sure feeling. I wanted the sure feeling that I knew God existed. I wanted to know whether my friend was going to heaven or hell. I craved those feelings. But oh man, did I pray for her. Like crazy, I prayed for her. I remember going to the altar and just crying and crying and crying, because I thought, even though I didn't think I knew that hell existed, I thought it did, and I thought that if she didn't come back, she was going to go there, and even if there wasn't a hell, I thought she had basically like kicked my God in the face. And the fact that I didn't know my beliefs were true conflicted with this feeling that I believed it, and it was like, should I be sure? Does being sure make me win back my friend? I wanted God to give me an absolute sign or something. I wanted God to give her an absolute sign. I wanted something I could go on so I could say, this is proof. The problem was, the closest thing I had was experience. So I tried to talk with her about experience. Yeah, you spoke in tongues, you got the Holy Ghost, you worshipped and jumped up and down and did all this. So doesn't that mean anything? Especially the speaking in tongues thing. Like, isn't that a sign? I took that to be a sign of God. And she said that the only reason she spoke in tongues when she was like 15 or so is because everyone else was pressuring her to do it. And she said it never felt magical to her, it never felt mystical to her, it just felt like she was babbling, she said. And that hit me hard, because to me, that's not how I felt. To me, it had been such a persuasive experience. I thought that my personal experience was the closest thing I had to proof. And yet she had had all the same spiritual experiences as I did. Or at least on the outside she had. And yet here she was saying, no, I don't believe in it. I had nothing to give her. Whenever I witnessed to people before, whenever I tried to tell them about God before, it was like, once you experience it, how can you ever deny God again? How can you ever deny this is, the truth? And here someone was, who I had seen be spiritual like me, someone who I'd modeled a lot of my spiritual life after, someone who inspired me to worship and invited me to church. I would have never gone to church if it weren't for her. Here she was, leaving, and I wanted to do everything to save her, more than anyone else who had left before. I felt she had done so much for me. How could I not do the same? One day I'd asked her why she left, or she had asked me if I wanted to know the real reason she left. I don't remember how this came up, but I remember she told me if I hadn't left that church, I would be dead. I was very perplexed by this. What do you mean? I asked her, and she goes, I was so miserable that I wanted to kill myself. She said I would go to bed at night and pray for God to kill me. I would beg God to kill me because suicide was a sin. She said, but it got to the point where I was so unhappy that it was either leave or kill myself, because I know if I would have had to stay through that any longer, that I would have killed myself because I would have been so unhappy. It still hurts me to think about when she told me that. How could something that is supposed to introduce you to God, introduce you to great joy, is supposed to be the truth, the way, the life, peace, how could she be feeling that way? How could she, somebody who had been so active and tried, I knew she was trying, yeah, maybe she hadn't read the Bible enough, or, maybe sometimes she didn't pray enough, but I know she tried. I know that she wanted to believe it, that she tried to stick it out a long time. I tried to chalk it up to, she had a screwed up family, maybe that played into it, maybe Satan had deceived her in a lot of things. I mean, Satan does attack the people who are really active, but so much of what she was saying, there was just so much truth and pain in it. I remember going to prayer at the church one time and asking God, why am I still here at this church? Most of my friends who I'd come into church with had left by now. The only one who was left was the man who is now my husband, and we had just recently started dating, my boyfriend at the time. But that was all that was left of, I think, 6 people. 2/3 of my friendship circle had dropped out of the church by now. I remember being like, why? Why me? Why am I still here? Why are the people who I expected to still be here? Why Jackie? Of all the people I expected to leave, never her. Never her. Maybe she didn't love God as much as I did or something. Maybe she had never really had the same relationship with God as I had. So I remember thinking, okay, so if I love God, and I really believe this, I better make sure this doesn't happen to me. I became very afraid. I had always had this little bit of a sense that it could never happen to me. But after seeing my friend who was so strong spiritually leave, I realized it could happen to me. It could. I could leave the church and leave God and all these things, and I became very afraid. I thought maybe if I get closer to God, maybe if I figure out some of these things that are bothering me, maybe I will have some kind of concrete thing to share with people more. I wanted to prove to my friend that my God was real. I wanted to prove to my friend so she could go to heaven, so she could feel joy, because I knew she was still hurting from her experience. And I thought only Jesus could fix this, but she had been here for Jesus to fix it, and Jesus hadn't fixed it. I'm so confused. I'm so confused, I thought. Oh, I went from having a desire to know what God wanted and to be secure in my beliefs, to feeling a desperation, a need to feel that. I thought if I build a foundation, if I make sure my foundation of spiritual faith is rock solid, nothing will break it. Nothing. In order to do that, I figured I'm gonna start really paying attention to my beliefs, really reading my Bible, studying, seeking, everything I could think of to make sure that I was set in the truth. To be a spiritual warrior, I was going to figure out as much as I possibly could to serve God properly. So I'd never be without God. I'd never be lost. Like, I thought my friend was. I didn't want to end up like her. I thought to myself, it's time to study and be committed and do everything that I have been doing times more. And I had no doubts that doing that would take me toward God, would take me toward a solid foundation and belief in Christianity and my denomination's religion. It probably doesn't surprise you to hear that that's not how it happened.